I'm just making sure we're recording you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Mr. Stogi Kenyatta, welcome to the CHYNA NICOLE Show. Such an honor to interview you today.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
And this is courtesy of the Coalition to Preserve Reggae Music. They're the ones who set this whole thing up. They arranged the interview. Isn't that fantastic?
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. As a matter of fact, at the end of my shows, when I'm at college shows, I always mention that, as I call the students there, the African Americans, I call them descendants of those rebellious slaves. And I point out to them that we descendants of those rebellious slaves have invented every form of music on the planet Earth, with the exception of opera and classical. And among that includes the unique sounds of reggae music and calypso, which come from my homeland.
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was certainly in the mood of being a social justice broadcaster in my own right, just playing a slew of music from Norrisman. I played Sizzla Kalonji. I played Andrew Bees. These are just artists that are up and coming in the last 20 years, we would say, in comparison to Bob Marley's and Mighty Diamonds, which I also played too. So
right,
yeah, keeping in line with the theme, because it's all about you today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're on tour. We're just finishing up here. We just did a couple of shows here at the Academy Playhouse, which we'll be doing 3 more in a couple of weeks, and also a benefit for the Muhammad Schools of Atlanta, which is the 3rd time I've worked with them, and so it's been a wonderful thing. And so we're coming up to New York tomorrow.
I was reading your biography sent from Sharon Gordon, and it's so jam-packed, and I had a little bit of a difficult time just dissecting it, because you've done so much. So I want audiences to get a sense of who Stogi Kenyatta is. So can you talk about your child? You were born in Jamaica, and when did you come to America? Because it goes right into your records, it goes right into your college experience. So tell us about the childhood experience.
Yeah, well, I'm come up from Jamaica, born in Kingston near Norman Gardens, not far from Arborview on Poncampadon Road. But most of my schooling was done here in Brooklyn, New York, and I came up and made the adjustments with urban life, and it was a wonderful experience, and I became a student athlete, and I was always bright because my mother did teach English at school.
Oh, your mom was a teacher.
Yeah, so we started reading a lot sooner than the kids did here.
Yep.
And as a result, we were only able to watch a couple hours of TV a night, so we didn't have to read and ting, and being that I was the only boy with a house full of 5 sisters, a mother and a grandmother, and so it was so we became and we learned how to speak properly, and because we couldn't say ain't and things like that, and all.
Not with your mom being a teacher, huh?
No. Although patois was quite acceptable, because we can come in and out of patois because we're Jamaican, and so it's and so yeah, so we learned that and so we grew up with a sense of that and a pride in being Caribbean and Jamaican, and so it was and I went to after graduating college, I had some basketball scholarships, and I had some drama scholarships to California, and but I knew I wanted to go to Florida or California because I never liked the cool, and it was too cold here.
So wait a minute, basketball scholarships and drama scholarships.
Right. I had drama scholarships, quite a few, but basketball paid more, and that was what I wanted to. I was much more passionate about that at the time because, there were some possibilities. So I went to California State University, Long Beach, and I played ball, and I had a couple of knee surgeries and the whole thing, but I studied political science and screenwriting because I had already started acting, and I'd studied with Ernie McClintock and Al Fan Ensemble at the Afro-American Studio in Harlem, and was doing theater there. And I was learned, along with writing as well as acting, that anyone can learn technique and the whole thing, but they couldn't give you the gift of story, they couldn't give you imagination, and that if you had that it really was the primary, most important thing. So I knew I wasn't going to major in drama, but I did want to, because I at some point had wanted to to be an ambassador to Jamaica, and and have dual citizenship and all that at one time, and so there was that and the possibility of maybe going to law school. But after being in California for a while and the whole thing, I decided I would just chase my passion because life is entirely too short, and so I would do that. And so
to get a drama scholarship, first of all, is incredibly difficult. So kudos to you just for getting that. That's I just know just performing arts in itself to get that type of scholarship. So you must have been really good at what you've done. And you had, I gather, a portfolio of all of your acting credits in high school?
Yeah, well, what I did, I was part of the New York State Theater competition with John Houseman, and of all the kids in the school, and when we went to NYU, the high school kids, and many of the kids from Manhattan and Connecticut came with tutors and professional coaches and things like that. And I was always good, and so I did Oedipus Rex. I did a classical and a contemporary monologue and the whole thing, and I was one of the 75 finalists of that, from the entire in the entire country. And so they tended to offer those students drama scholarships, and the deceptive thing about a drama scholarship is that you'd probably need additional aid to pay for a full tuition. And so with basketball, but I never doubted that aspect of it. It was that always came easy to me. That was one of the natural gifts, and and I was told that that's how you know it's talent, because it comes a little bit easier to you. So it was that was a small part of the journey, but I did know that as long as it led to higher education, because I knew as Robeson did, that told us that education was the number one way to advance through a society, and so it did certainly change my perspective, because growing up in Brooklyn and seeing the rest of the world through different eyes really helped.
That was well said. Now tell us. We know that you had this passion and you went to school for basketball. Tell us, when you graduated, what was the actual first film, sitcom? That's where I'm trying to get the chronological order for your highlights, because you've done so much. Over 30 TV sitcoms, films, all of that, and touring so many places. Walk us through some of the highlights from the time you did you graduate? Did you graduate from the university?
Yeah.
Okay.
I graduated, and then I wanted to act in political science, but a film school, and screenwriting and background as well. And I studied with Ivan Markota at the Van Mar Academy, as well as Al Fan with the Al Fan Ensemble, which basically taught audition technique, it taught cold reading, and it taught how to go from the art and the craft and the business. The ABCs of acting. There's the art, there's the business, and there's the craft. And all three of them are necessary. And so there were things that, that I had to do, and as you learn the process of that, so it was it was quite it was quite educational, and and there's a tremendous amount of competition, because a lot of times when you get to Hollywood, you realize that the best kids that are good in all of their home states have all come there from all around the globe, and and the competition is extremely stiff. And so I often tell students that acting is not for the kids that want to act; it's for the student that has to act, that has to feel, because it, as they say, if you got what it takes, it's going to take everything you got, and it's like love in life, it takes no less than everything, and so it's in an industry where you can see kids that have come up that were child stars, and then they turn 18 and then they never work again in their life, and and kids that I had friends. I was just who was coming out to see the show. The guy who played Ted Lange. He was the bartender on the Love Boat.
Oh yeah,
the black guy.
Yeah.
Right. And and it's and you see these guys that have Ron Glass, who was on Barney Miller, the black cop on Barney Miller.
Yes.
He just had his 70-something birthday. I think 75th birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I haven't seen him on TV in over the last 20, 25 years, you know what I mean? And so it's like Jasmine Guy is down here in Atlanta. She was doing a one-person show. And so it's a very fickle industry, and one that decries just like, our predecessors before us. And during the Harlem Renaissance, whether it's Nat King Cole or Sarah Vaughan or
era.
Ella Fitzgerald or all of those people, it's it is a struggle to stay relevant in an industry that is so tremendously fickle.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to, survive creatively,
So tell us those challenges. Okay, so we definitely challenges. We know the stiff competition, as you mentioned, repeating your words. Now, the highlights. What was the first break for you?
I would say I got Sanford and Son. I auditioned, and I got Sanford and Son, and followed that with a stint on The White Shadow. Then I got soap operas. I got a soap opera called Santa Barbara, which I did a few episodes on, and then it just
How was that?
It just went from there.
I heard in soap opera you have to memorize like a billion lines versus acting in a movie or a drama series, perhaps. That soap operas they really crunched. You do. Is that really true? The memory?
You do. You have to memorize. But it's that aspect of it always came easy to me because it wasn't so much that, it was the delivery and the tone and other things there, and so yeah. But no, it can be because you get locked into it. I remember I was doing a soap opera, Bold and the Beautiful, and I was marrying, as a Caribbean pastor, I was marrying two of the lead characters, and I had to say, when you marry, you have this thing to where you say, so do you take this person to be your wife, loving wife, till death do you part?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought everyone said. And even though the script said something different, it meant the same thing, but the script said, and to hold each other and cherish each other for as long as you both shall live.
Right.
And every single time I would go, till death do you part. And them said, no, that's soap opera because people dead all the time. And so you can't use the word death in their wedding ceremony. Oh. And for some reason, I would remember all 58 lines before I get to that last one. And I would get to the last one, and the gal would be standing there bawling our eyes out at a wedding because they cried at the wedding. And I would go, till death do you part. And I'd go, oh, dear God. And they would start over again. And I would go like, and I would apologize to the girl and say, oh, you're crying. She says, oh, no, it's okay. I can do it again. I cry. And I'm going like, and I got this poor girl crying. She's going to run out of tears before I get the damn thing right. And I kept going back and forth and back and forth. And so the whole thing is that, I think, say, Africans and we say, till death do you part at the end of the, think of it, as long as you can live, till death do you part.
Thank you for sharing that.
They say, as long as you both shall live, which is similar but different as hell. And it was like, and I remember that because I know that went into like 15 takes because by the time I remembered the 47 lines that came before it, when I got to that next one, it would be that, and so it was like, but eventually, you learn and you pick up, but it's wonderful. One of the biggest movies would have been Batman and Robin, where I worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger and George Clooney, but I was number 12 in the credits, but them chop up a whole heap of scenes, and it wasn't as prominent a role as I was.
But you were in that film?
Yes, I was in that.
Wow. That's what year
was that? But it's not, as I said, it was not as prominent a role.
But still, you worked alongside.
In the final analysis, because
Gotcha. What year was that, by the way?
1997.
Okay. Would you like to talk about any other highlights before we get into the big show happening next?
No. We can go right to the show because
let's talk about the show.
It's primary and it's current.
Let's talk about that.
It has come to define me to some degree.
So let's talk about how did this evolve? You being the one, forming into this one-man show for audiences to come and see you. Tell us how did that whole thing evolve from going into acting with movies and sitcoms to doing one-man shows and touring?
Well, I still work in television and film when the opportunity presents itself, and still audition and things. So and do stand-up as well. But this has been a passion piece of mine.
And I wanted to talk about the comedy thing too. I did want us to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. And Robeson has been an idol of mine, and he is, he's just one of the most amazing, and according to the Library of Congress, they named him one of the 15 most intriguing people of the 20th century. And and that's an amazing achievement, in and of itself. He is the son of a runaway slave, one generation removed from slavery in 1898, born in Princeton, New Jersey, and It was a very, very tough world, and as you can imagine, that was still 70 years before the civil rights movement was even going to start.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so here he was, and by the time he went to a segregated high school, and he graduated and got an academic scholarship to Rutgers University. He was the third African American to get an academic scholarship, in 1913. And so he graduated magna cum laude with a 4.0 grade point average and was valedictorian.
He had a basketball scholarship like you did.
Well, he didn't come in on the basketball scholarship because I don't think they had those then. He played on the basketball team.
Okay.
And he also played football and ran track, and he played baseball as well. He excelled in all the sports, but more importantly, he graduated. He was an A student, and he graduated valedictorian, and which was a unique achievement and a very lofty accomplishment. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there were no jobs for him in 1919. And America was an illiterate nation, so to have this African-American boy, with a degree of that magnitude from a university was something else, but no one would hire him. Mm-hmm. So his brother suggested he take the law school entrance examination test. He did. He got into Columbia University School of Law, mm-hmm. and after some trials and tribulations there, he graduated with honors and became the first Negro attorney hired by a Manhattan law firm. And so, and then by then he was also playing in the early NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you didn't pay the kind of money the NFL.
Football. Okay, yeah, National Football League.
Right, yeah. Yep. And so they didn't pay the kind of money that they pay today in the NFL, but but he was in the early NFL and the player there, and so and when you're talking 1922, and who has a use for a black lawyer? Black people couldn't afford him, and white people wouldn't hire him, and no judge wanted to see a black attorney, and no white client wanted a black attorney for representing them, so he really had no place in law.
Right.
And so through the urging of his wife, Miss Flanda, he was singing, and she knew he had a great voice. She got him into a play, and then one thing led to another, and then he went off to London with Lena Horne to do Showboat, and it became a huge hit, and he became an international sensation. Then he came back and did some more plays and did a movie, and then sung at the Cotton Club, and he got really huge, and went abroad. He found so much acceptance when he was in England that it was an amazing thing for him, and so he started getting wealthy, and then the Great Depression hit, and a lot of things went wrong, and then the war and World War II, and it was just a crazy world with lynchings and and the Holocaust for the Jews. It was just a really tremendous time, but he persevered through it, as did those, and after World War II, with all the death and the world was tired of warfare, and they wanted music and entertainment, and no one played anything.
Always leave it to music and entertainment to save the day, I tell you.
That's right.
Because you mentioned what a scholar he was, a law student, lawyer. I don't know if he was practicing law, and Columbia Law, hello, and
right.
Football, NFL. And also singer. So many hats.
Absolutely, and so after World War II, we had over 96 million people that died in those two world wars, and they followed closely behind each other, and almost 70 million of them were civilians, and so a world weary of war needed entertainment, and they had this, nowhere to turn, with that village in Harlem and that cultural movement known as the Harlem Renaissance, mm-hmm. and that was where the change happened. And so Robeson was good friends with all those people from Cab Calloway, Fats Waller, U.B. Blake, Jack Johnson. I played 16 different characters in this play.
Do you really?
He ages from the age of 5 all the way up. So you will know about all the people from the Harlem Renaissance.
Oh, this sounds phenomenal. I have to make my way over there. Yeah,
there's a lot of music from all those people in the plays. I have 5 costume changes in the context of the play. He ages from the age of 5. You don't have to know anything about Robeson when you come in there because it's told chronologically. And so the opening scene is when Harriet Tubman, that 19-year-old slave girl, went back from Massachusetts after they freed her from slavery, the abolitionists, and she made note of the route, and she worked out a device to go back into slavery to get their people and to get her mother and her sisters and brothers out of slavery. And when she went there, she didn't find them, but she found amongst them other slaves that needed to be free, so she took them on this railroad, and she made 19 trips. back down there. On one of those trips, she brought a 15-year-old runaway. That runaway's name was William Drew, and he was from the Robeson plantation, and that's where he got his name, William Drew Robeson. And that William Drew would have 5 children after he married and came to Pennsylvania. And he went to college as well. He went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, Paul Robeson's father. And so it's told chronologically, and it opens with them with Harriet Tubman, for a reason, which becomes apparent later on in the play. And it goes all the way through history, and he comes up and then with his son Paul. And so Paul was greatly influenced because at the time he was the most influential artist of his time. And he influenced a lot of artists, and among them was who he mentored was the great Jamaican Harry Belafonte. And the great Bahamian, Sidney Poitier, and that son of a Louisiana slave, Jackie Robinson, from California, who he helped get into the major leagues for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So there's a Brooklyn connection there, because without Paul Robeson, Jackie Robinson may have not gotten to the Brooklyn Dodgers. And so, and he taught them that education was the number one way for any people to advance. And so in 1959, Poitier, Belafonte, and Jackie Robinson started a foundation to pay for the education of African students, because Robeson, who was very good friends with Claude McKay, who was a Jamaican novelist and a writer, and a good friend of Paul Robeson, and he would share with him the socialist teachings of his mentor, the great Jamaican Marcus Garvey. And so Marcus Garvey was always pushing the Pan-African, the Back to Africa movement, and that we are Africans in America, we're Africans in the West, we're descendants of these African slaves. And so Robeson, through his friendship with W.E.B. Du Bois as well, started the OAU, the Organization for African Unity. So he was just really all over the place in politics and arts and sports and athletics, and so it's he was the paradigm for American success, because he excelled in all the areas that created African American millionaires and wealthy people and influential people, which was arts, the entertainment, athletics, sports, and the brothers from Jackie Robinson to Jack Johnson to Joe Louis, and as well as law and social justice. And so, and those were all of our heroes. They were either Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, great athletes, great singers and dancers and performers.
Why did you
choose Paul Robeson? Those were the 4 areas where we excelled.
Yes, and thank you. That was, profound. Everything you've said. You've educated the world just now, because you certainly can't find all that information in any biography. So you can tell that you certainly spent your time studying and researching Paul Robeson. Why Paul Robeson?
Well, as I said, he was a paradigm for American success, and without Robeson, we would not have Barack Obama as a president. And a lot of times people say that, but once Belafonte, Poitier, and Jackie Robinson started that foundation, they went off to Africa to find the students that would pass the college entrance examination test. And 72 students passed it. And they went from Ghana all the way through West Africa, all the way around the Horn to South Africa, to East Africa. And among the 72 students was a brilliant math student from the mountainsides of Kenya, was Barack Obama. And so they brought Barack Obama's father to the University of Hawaii to study. And it was a couple of years later that he met Ann Dunham, a student from Kansas City, and he fell in love, and they had a baby, and they named his son after himself, Barack Hussein Obama. And so that is the story, where basically had this, son of a slave, Robeson, not, befriended this Jamaican, Belafonte, and this Bahamian, Poitier, and Jackie Robinson, to go all the way to Africa to get the boy that would become the man, that would have the boy that would later be our first black president. And so it just shows Robeson is important, because it shows that you can make a difference and help change the world, even though you may not be there to see the change and the difference that your work has created. But it's that we have this lineage to where we're all connected to each other, and we have this thing to where this universal oneness to where we are our brother's keeper, and together, this cooperation through compassion, cooperation, that we can help change the world.
You say the goal of the play is to awaken a new generation so that the lost brilliance of Robeson doesn't remain lost, to let all people know that the best of Paul Robeson lives in all of you, and with the power of change, the power to change the world. And that's certainly what you've been saying all along, about Paul Robeson. I'm telling you, I'm learning so much about the brilliance of him. In history, we talk about and we learn about so many. You mentioned the Harlem Renaissance, which is like one of my favorite eras of all time, and very prominent figures for blacks specifically and the world. But Paul Robeson, for me, was under the radar. Why do you think that was, or that is?
That is and was because blacks and whites, particularly in power, and blacks who don't know as much, are intimidated by black intelligentsia. Mm-hmm. We were told we were bringers of woods and hewers of waters and different things, and that we were intellectually inferior while being physically superior, but we were intellectually inferior. And so Robeson came along and changed all of that. Even though he remained physically superior, he showed that intellectually. He spoke 17 languages fluently. I mean, it's just an amazing accomplishment. It's almost as if he lived 2 lifetimes. It's inspiring to me because it lets you know however much you think you're doing, you can always do more. Because we, as descendants of those rebellious African slaves, have done so much with so little. It's just amazing. I mean, to think that, we're 12% of the population, and we're one of the first ethnic groups to go into space, that we've created every form of music on the planet Earth with the exception of opera and classical, that there's not an area of American Western civilization life that we have not touched, whether it's science, medicine, inventions, you name it. The greatest invention is an African, by the name of Elijah McCoy. And when someone says, is that the real McCoy, that's what they're talking about, because Elijah McCoy had so many inventions that every great invention was named almost after him, to say that's the real McCoy there. That's, and what George Washington Carver did, what Charles Drew did with blood plasma and blood bank and blood transfusions. It's like, we're an amazing people to have come through all of that. We're the only race of people on the planet Earth where the law of the land was if you teach a black child to read, he's going to go to jail for learning how to read, and you're going to go to jail for having taught him. There was never that kind of oppression where you go mental, physical, and spiritual, where they deny you health, education, and welfare. There's never been a government experiment like the Tuskegee experiment where you inject 40,000 black men for 40 years with syphilis and let them go home to their wives untreated and have these blind babies. And you can say, well, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, the whole thing, but what about the rest?
Preach it, Stogie.
What about, you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm there with you, and so is everyone else. We do have an intelligent audience, and they are listening. They're in tune to everything that you're saying, and that's why I'm so privileged to play the music that I play. I do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the play has laughter and joy, and it's a lot because that's how we do it. We survive creatively and with brilliance and with joy and exuberance because we embrace this gift of life, and that's what it's about. The ability to persevere regardless of the circumstance, and that's one of the things that I was most proud about his journey is.
So this play, tell us just quickly about the production, and yes, we know it's happening Sunday, July 26th, and it's courtesy of the Freedom School and CPRreggae.org. I know they have a major hand in this for fundraising as well to join their organization. Tell us about the production of the play and where next. Is it going to be continuing in this tour? Does it stop here? Tell us about that.
Yes, it'll be there. After that, we leave to go back to Atlanta, and then we'll be in Martha's Vineyards the last week of August, and I believe the first family will be there. I'm not sure if they will be in attendance. I can't confirm that, but we will be in Martha's Vineyards August 28th, 29th, and 30th. My wife, who has connections in the Bronx, but she's Black Puerto Rican off the Caribbean Sea, and Mishi Kenyatta, and my sister Maxine Gallman, and her wonderful family with my three nieces that I love to pieces, Quentin, Cambria, and Lauren. And Lauren just graduated from school there in Queens and was the student athlete of the week, and she'll be going to University of Central Florida. So, but she's there, and they're all out in South Ozone Park, Queens, and so yeah, so we're extremely excited about it, and and really looking forward to that.
Hello to your family, your wonderful family, who's there as your pillar of strength, I guess, through this tour.
Absolutely.
And you educating a new nation, and the old ones too, about Mr. Paul Robeson. So we can expect to be educated and entertained at the same time with this play.
Oh, absolutely. It's we have music from 15 different artists in the piece as well. Play 12 characters. You have around 4 wardrobe changes, and it's a journey. It's a 70-year journey, and it's romanticized, because it's a love story as well. Because without love, nothing else matters.
That's right.
And so it's yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
You've been encouraging us along the way, but I like to just ask if you can leave us with a quote, or I know I read one from your biography, and we can certainly put that in the scribe for the archive, the recording of this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to leave, being that you're an educator?
Well, first of all, before I forget, I want to big up Radio Raheem with the Freedom School, who I've worked with 3 times before in the past. He does a wonderful
Radio
job,
Raheem.
And Sharon Garden.
Big up to Sharon Gordon.
And I'm a big Jamaican family, and because I have a whole heap of Jamaican family all over New York. So plenty of them are hearing me, and and it's my wonderful mother's in Flushing, Queens right now. She named Alga, and we call her Talga because Jamaicans mispronounce it so, but Talga. But anyway, she is, and I look forward to seeing her when I get in town as well. And so it's it's everything. And one of the themes of the play is that if we accept the fatherhood of God, then we must accept the brotherhood of man. And that is, it's just one world. We share a very short time on this planet together. And no matter who you are or what you've done or where you're going, the whole thing, if you're lucky, you're going to get maybe 80, 85 years here on the planet, and then you're going to be gone. And so we have this obligation to try and share this earth and to try and do it with a little bit of love and compassion, and understand that, that if God is our Father, then all men are brothers.
If we accept the fatherhood of God, then we accept the brotherhood of man.
We must accept the brotherhood of man. Absolutely.
Thank you. I want to make sure I get that right. Thank you so much, Mr. Stogi Kenyatta. Thank you so much for being.
So much.
We're going to be there July 26th, everyone. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay.
Mr. Kenyatta, what were you saying?
I'm telling they should order the tickets early because it's on the verge of selling out, and we would really like that, and we made sure we kept it at a very economically friendly price.
Yes,
and we made concessions so that we can do so. So we're looking forward to that. Okay.
Excellent. It's going to be great. I have to be there. I have to see it. It's going to be amazing.
Fantastic. And after the show, I come out, and we can take pictures and things, and I'm just signing things and everything. So we can make it a real lovely affair. All right. So
awesome. Where can people connect with you just to follow up with you with future shows?
On the website. You can send me a message on the website. It's Paul Robeson OneManShow.com. Or you can just Google Paul Robeson One Man Show, and it'll lead you to me because I own the domain name. Okay, I buy it. Okay. And so yes, you can reach me there. I'm on Facebook as well under Stogi Kenyatta. It can't be too weak, because it's like now Stokely Carmichael is Caribbean. It's Trinidadian. Stokely Carmichael later became Kwame Ture, and but Stokely is one of my family's idols, and I was named similar to him because them probably think they was doing the same name, but how Jamaicans stay and them can't mash up things. But anyway,
you have a great personality. You switch
but
from
Stokely
intellectual to
turned out to be Stogie, and so yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again for being on our show. It certainly was entertaining and educational.
Yeah, it was a distinct pleasure. Do have a wonderful day, and I will see you at the theater and see you on Sunday.
Absolutely. Bless up.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.